My guest today is an amazing parenting coach, and I met her through a mutual friend. And I felt like, I just had to invite Anna Scoby onto this platform because she has a wealth of knowledge that I feel like all of you parents are going to benefit from. So without further ado, here's Anna Scoby. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Good morning.
Thank you so much for making time to come on. And so let's get right to it. So tell me, first of all, what led to you becoming a parenting coach?
Well, I should do just tweety correction. I am a communication coach. The topic of parenting comes on often because the parents of my students come and ask what they can do better, what they can work on, what's happening with their kids. So a lot of it is almost as I would by no means call myself a parenting coach, because I think as a parents, we're all doing the best we can. And I am learning myself. But what I did find out with my practice is the kids share, my students share some of the tips, the parenting tips that they would hope and like for us as a parents to be for them. And I think that's where the conversation you and I had earlier, that I do have some insights on parenting, and those insights on parenting come from kids, from my students, from my own kids. And I think that's where this topic comes on with parenting.
Right. Yeah. I apologize for that. I always think of parenting, but so I love that you focus on the communication style, because I feel like that is the number one issue when it comes to any relationship. It's, people hear something different, when you intend it to be, something else. So how did you get into this? Because I feel like communication is such an art, and it takes a lot of patience to practice it.
Communication is an art, and it also, I take it further and I call it a magic. And magic is unexplained science. So to me, communication is almost as a science. And think of it this way: with just one word, we can start a war, we can fall in love, we can build someone up or destroy someone and shred them into pieces. So you know how they say that those who do what they do a lot of times is because it is something that they had to learn on their own and get good at it. So English is my second language, and I grew up in a family where communication was not a part of our everyday life. In a sense, we didn't have conversations about our feelings. We didn't have conversations of what everybody wanted. It was more like, this is what needs to be done, go do it, and we just going to move on and accomplish great things. So I had to learn communications when I get to America, when I got to this country. And it was a journey, because I did not know how to use my words to ask. I'm still learning how to ask for help, because I grew up not being allowed to ask for help. So I'm still learning to ask for help. I'm still learning to communicate my needs. I'm still learning to express my thoughts and share my ideas. And what I'm noticing, that as overall, the biggest complaint that I have from my students, from the parents, that we don't talk to each other. We are waiting for our turn to speak, to reply, to share our thoughts, and we are not really communicating. I know I keep deviating from your question. So how I got into this is this: when I was looking for a job, the basic skill was to interview, the basic skill was to present myself, and I've realized that I really don't know. I really don't know how to, in a way, sell myself, how to show and talk about myself. And I started my journey in communication with Toastmasters International. It's an amazing organization to get anybody started into that. How do we talk? How do we communicate? And from there, it turned into my kids needed to be taught how to communicate, because my oldest one was getting into the high school. So he needed to figure out how to find his first job, how to pass his college interviews. And as my youngest one started to catch up to him, I realized that she needs help with communicating her feelings, her thoughts, and not necessary to other people, but to herself too. So communication to me is so much more than just, a lot of people think communication is like a stage and a light and everybody's looking at you and like a greater speeches. But to me, communication is like, hey mom, I'm not doing okay. Can we talk about this? Or like, hey, I think I have this great idea. I believe I have this great idea. Can I share it with you? So communication is what we do daily. And with my journey, with my communication, with my teaching my kids, that's how the Project BU become a Project BU nonprofit, to teach more kids. Because as parents start hearing from my kids and their friends, they start asking, can you come teach our kids? Can you please take our kids? And that's how it become a class. And I am grateful and thankful for it, because every time I teach a class, I learned so much from my students, and I then spread the word so I can teach the rest of the world. So hopefully that answered the questions. I'm a storyteller, so I go with so if at any point you need to stop and put me in the direction, just I won't get offended.
No problem. You did great. I love, the story of how you led up to becoming a communication coach, and that you focus on youth, because I've had many conversations with people, like one that sticks out is Kenneth Scott, who is working with children who are collegiate athletes. And one of the things he said is, you have to start branding yourself. You have to be careful how you say things and what you post. So, thinking about what you do, I think, you would make a great team with him, like you both are doing such great work, because you are teaching that art of communication that's going to help them level up. And I think that people don't understand how important it is, to know how to articulate and how to sell yourself. And when you said sell yourself, that you struggled with that, I feel like I still struggle with that too. Being an entrepreneur, it has its downs and it has its ups. And one of the things that you're constantly doing is communicating to people what it is you do and where the value is, so that they see, why you'd want to work with them, or why they want to work with you. So
and a lot of it is, we also, as kids, we are trained to be humbled. We are trained to not brag. And in adult world, the interviews, the communication, it's all about, I need to tell others what I can do. I need to tell others how great I am. And I think that's it, like internal conflict kicks in. Like, I'm supposed to be humbled. I'm supposed to be not in your face, but in the interviews, it's that. And working with youth, I have kids who come to me with an amazing interview resumes. They almost solved the world hunger. They almost flew to the moon. They had all these projects. They volunteered. They participated. But when I ask them, tell me a little bit about your project, they feel as they didn't do enough. Like they don't know how to talk about it and how talk about how cool that is. So yes, our youth does need help with talking about themselves in a way of, here are my projects, this is what I've accomplished, this is what I have done. Because whether we like it or not, college world is competitive. It is where you have to stand out, you have to brag in a sense, but we learning, and I'm teaching how to do it in a way that the other side who's listening feels that that's the person I want on my team. So you're not just coming in with opening the door with your foot and get your feet on the table. You're more like, hey, this is what I can do to contribute to your team. This is how I can be a part of this and make it amazing. So that's a little bit of a tweak with that, but I can totally relate of not being able. I'm still sometimes struggle of telling the world all the things that I've done because my humbling come in and say, no, be just sit back.
yeah, I agree, because I've had to do that, especially this past year, where I have to sell myself. And that means I have to talk about the great things I've done. And at first it feels so uncomfortable and weird. And I remember saying, I'm not being arrogant, but this is what I've done. And so now I've graduated to not even having to say, hey, I'm not being arrogant. And there's a way that you can do that and get more comfortable with it, to the point to where it can just flow very easily, and people don't feel like it's weird. They just keep listening. And the funny thing is that as I was sharing about my wins and things I've done, people were actually interested. And I think that's one of the things that we worry about, right? When we share about our wins and we're like, oh, I'm going to brag about myself. They might think it's not a big deal, or they might not think much of it. But then the reaction affirms how that the delivery went the way that you wanted to. There's one thing that you mentioned, that this program, the Project BU, is for youth. So what ages do you work with?
I have students as young as the kindergartners. Because ironically, when the parents come to me and say, hey, when do I start? When do I start with the kids? And I say, as soon as possible, because when the kids are little, they don't have a fear of public speaking. They really don't. Most of them don't. Of course, there is some with personalities, but in general, they would talk. And with age, they develop that fear because we're not teaching them how. So they acquire this negative experience that makes them feel like they can't. So the sooner you get to them and teach them the skill, the sooner they feel comfortable, and they kind of springboard into adulting, into the middle school, high school, and feel comfortable with it. So as young as kindergarten and as old as high schoolers, I do have a few adults. My background is in the corporate training. I've done corporate training for a few corporations. That's how I start my training career. That's where I start noticing that I enjoy when I share the knowledge, and then when I can help and influence others to get what they want. So I have a background in sales management. I know, it's crazy as this sounds. So I started with adults, and then I slowly graduated into the kids because of mine kids and the high schoolers. And there's so much reward when I can contribute to that interview, or to that school presentations, or to that better grade, or to that I feel better. I'm doing much better in school because I'm no longer sweating, thinking that my teacher is going to call me to respond to the question. I feel better. So that's, again, kindergarten to the high schoolers and everything in between.
That's really, really great. I wasn't expecting you to say kindergarten. That was surprising, but it makes sense, right? If you want to build a really good habit on how to communicate, it has to start very, very young. So have you noticed a resistance or more intimidation in public speaking at a certain age level in kids?
It depends. Each age group experience their own challenges, and it comes along with their development, with how they are, what school they're in, what's their family focus on things. So with an elementary, I would say they are still in a position where they try to please the parents and the teachers. So they're kind of like in a limbo where they do want to learn the skill of how do you express yourself and make friends, and how do you like stay in that I just want people around me. With the elementary, with the middle school, it is more when they start discovering like, maybe I don't want to please these people, maybe I want to piss them off. That's when you start noticing in the family a little bit of attention with the middle schoolers. And the middle school is when we go for the popularity, is when you have the groups, when you start going for, okay, you're a cool kid, not a cool kid. So that's a different type of communication. A lot of it has to do with feeling, okay, how do I express myself? How do I communicate? How do I say things that people like me? And then in high school, then from there, it's all, springboarded into adulting. And a lot of the high schoolers come to me with their challenges of feeling not enough, because as a parents, that's when we start pushing them harder, because we want to make sure that they get in the colleges we want, in their dreams or our dreams. Often it's our dreams, not their dreams, and we mix that up. So in high school, a lot of it is more of a confidence building through communication, where I get them to feel comfortable and enough where they can express themselves, when they can sell themselves. So every age group has their own little needs and tweaks, but in general, all of the groups can use a little bit of a boost of confidence when they feel like they're heard and when feel like their ideas matters, and they can be themselves. That's why Project BU, called Project BU, I don't teach them to be different. I teach them to be themselves, to be you, and I teach them skills that needed to adjust and adapt to the environment that they're in. I call it a switch. I teach them how to switch from introvert to a behavior where they can be alive of a party because they can communicate, or from an extrovert to the most exceptional intimate communicator and interpersonal communicator because they can listen and they don't have to be on a spotlight. So I'm teaching them to switch and not to have to change, because a lot of times when we're trying to tell them how to do better or be better, they feel like I have to change. But with the Project BU, you are who you are, and it's an amazing and a wonderful person that you are. Let me teach you how to be in this world, how to adjust to this world, how to share with this world how amazing you are.
So how long is the program Project BU?
The Project BU have been around for over 7 years. We are growing. I have students who started with me when I first started. So I have students with me who has been with me for 7 years. I have students who I started with my daughter when she was 5. She's going to be 12 this year. And I have a new students. So I have students who kind of come and go for blocks of 10 classes or a year or 2 years. Or I have some students who just come in and say, hey, we just need to get to this college interview. Can you spend a few classes with us and get us going? Or I have my ongoing group that we are growing together. I'm learning from them. So it depends on the needs.
Okay, wow, that's really cool that you've had students for that long. I can only imagine these kids are going to be like the best public speakers as adults, probably on television.
I'm hoping that we are learning small talk. We are learning networking, we are learning cooperation, collaboration, creativity. So what I'm really hoping for is that they are going to be happy in whatever it is that they do, because they are feeling comfortable and confident, and they feel successful because they are where they want to be. That's my ultimate goal. I know this public speaking, I do take them to speech competitions. We do business fairs for kids. There, I have a group of entrepreneurs who are now entering. Last year, we've entered an adult space where they compete with adults for project and products, and they kick some of the adults' work backs because they still have the cute little faces going for them, and because of their ideas are different. And so that's a bonus. To me, that's a bonus. The most important is how they feel, and they feel comfortable, they feel comfortable, they're confident, and they can express themselves. And that's my goal with my classes. Awards, recognitions, first places, that's bonuses. To me, it's the feel. We go in for the feel, for them to really have that knowledge and that experience go deeper, for them to keep it through their ages, for their days, for them to be able to adult more successfully than you and I did, because we had to learn. And I'm hoping that they are going into this with the experience that they get with me.
Oh, that's amazing, Anna. I love it. I mean, it makes me want to enroll, and I'm not a minor, but it's a real gift to be able to provide this type of training for kids, because they do public speaking classes or projects in high school, but it's so minimal. It's like you do it for one semester, you write up a speech, and then that's all you get. And this is ongoing. So what tips would you provide parents who have children who are very timid and haven't built up that confidence to speak up?
There's so many different ways to do it. The idea is really this. The idea is to create the balance. So if your child has this negative experience where they feel like, I can't talk, I'm scared, I don't know how to do it, the idea is to build up the positive experience. So notice little things that they do. Let's say, oh, that was really good that you've talked to librarian and you asked for a book that you liked. Or a small little steps would be, can you go get a container at like a restaurant when we are getting ready to leave? Or can you order yourself? Because sometimes as a parents, we're kind of like jumping in to guide them and to shelter them and to make them feel comfortable. And it's very, very important, especially if you have a shy child, to do it very slowly. And to do it something little like, hey, can I do it with you? Can I show you how? So you have to do it. You have to be patient. You can't do it on your terms. It has to be on their terms. And noticing the things that does happen, like, oh, I saw that you were talking to this friend on the playground. That was really cool. So to point out to them things that they are already doing, and they may not realize it, that they're already doing public speaking, because again, they think like you are standing in front of the class and giving report. That's okay. Doing little things and maybe talking to the teachers, and some teachers are very receptive to this, some teachers unfortunately not. And so just making teacher aware of this, I would say find the classes around where you at for any kind of interactions, any kind of public speaking, and visit them and see anything that requires presenting, drama club or book club or any kind of camps, because during the camp, especially the summer camps, the kids are stepping outside their comfort zone and the meeting friends, and most importantly, recognizing those moments and saying like, hey, you did it. So you kind of start building that positive experience, and eventually it's going to get to that scale where it's balanced. And then you can build more and say, hey, would you be interested in doing this or this? And then you can tip it to the positive experience. But it does take patience. It does take time. Reading some books, there is an amazing libraries at this day and age. There are articles for parents. There are books for kids that you can look into to encourage. And again, pointing out, and sometimes it's hard for the kids to step outside the comfort zone and for the parents to help them, because we don't know what the problem is. We think that the child is shy, but they might have a friend at school, a rude friend who said, hey, you're stupid, or you're not good enough, or whatever it is. And the kids may not say it to the parents because they feel very embarrassed. So I would say, and I do that with my daughter, with my students, we play games, we play storytelling games at home. It's almost like a family tradition. And the best part is, when you listen to those stories that they tell, you just might hear how was their day, because they might talk from there was a fox, there was a bear, or whatever it is, but what they're really telling you that they're having challenge in school. So having that activities, and I'll show you, I think I have it with me. One of the tools I use at home, it's called a story cube. It's a set of different cubes with different pictures on them, and you roll them and you just tell a story. They called story cubes. You can buy them at Target, Walmart, anywhere else. Or if you go to Amazon and just Google or just search for storytelling games, that would be an amazing, and that works very well for shy kids as well, because you do it at home at a safety with them. When you do the games, give them something to munch on, because when we chew, we automatically relax. And especially if it's a salty snack, like goldfish or pretzels, they do very well with that. So they help them relax mentally, and their jaws are busy chewing. So they're critical, their critic inside them kind of busy chewing. So it will help the creativity to go through. So have a family night, have a storytelling. Now, for adults, it's sometimes harder than for kids. So be prepared as a parent to step outside your comfort zone and be there with the kids. And also be prepared to share that thought with your kids, to say, you know what? I'm not sure I am like okay with this, but let's try it together. A lot of times when we admit our vulnerability with kids, they are open up a little more, and they can relate to us, and they can say, oh, wait, are you scared of storytelling too? Are you scared of like a small talk? Me too. So it's an amazing way to get closer to the kids. of admitting that you're not perfect, admitting that you do have that fear, and that you can learn together, and offering to do it together a lot of times brings them closer. So I don't know, there's like many tips I just mixed in. So let me know if you need me to talk a little
Anna,
bit
those
more about it.
were great. I mean, those were great. Now, first of all, I had never heard of those, the cubes. I'm definitely going to get that because I can see how that can also like just help with bonding and with the family. And I'm always looking for something different for, you know, with my children, because there's still a lot of like not going out because of the COVID and all that. The chewing part, oh my gosh, I had no idea. that is so surprising. So I'm going to try that out, because it's so easy, it's doable, right?
Yes, I
And
used to call goldfish as my secret weapon. When the parents ask me, how do you make them do it? I was like, I have secret weapons, and one of them is a goldfish.
Anna, I'm never gonna look at goldfish the same again.
You're gonna look at it as a secret weapon, aren't you?
Yes, and my kids do love goldfish, so it's
Ta-da!
great. Yeah, wow, that is amazing. I love that. Okay, so people, if you just heard that, that's just a little tidbit of the amazing information that Anna can provide you with. And I hope that listeners do take in consideration putting their kids into this program, because our kids really, really need it. And they're watching the media and they're watching TikTok and all this, and they see behaviors and they emulate them. So you don't want them to go and replicate what they're watching there. You want them to have good communication skills. And you know, you said, Anna, that college is very competitive. I feel like high school has become very competitive too.
Middle school is competitive. Elementary school
Yes.
is competitive. Everything is competitive. And I think as an adult, we sometimes don't realize how stressed our kids are. They really, if we look back to our childhood, we just got home, throw in your backpack and go play with your friends.
Yeah.
Our kids don't have that. So I feel as a parent, yeah, we sometimes think, well, how hard is their life? We feed them, we nurture them, we give them clothes, but emotionally they're very stressed. They're very torn between the family values, the TikTok values, the popularity in school. So home, more than ever, is important for them to have a peace, for them to have that environment where they can trust you, and most importantly, know that you're not judging them for their mistakes, that you're there to listen to them and guide them through this really, really challenging times. And I do want to emphasize this, as another role that I took upon myself is to be an advocate for the kids and to give this message to the parents, because sometimes as a parent, we don't listen to our kids because we think we know it. We're an adult, we know what to do, we know how to take care of them. But in a lot of cases, if we ask the kids what they need, they will give us a totally different answer than what we are giving them. So that is something very, very important for us to make sure that I have one more secret weapon, if you want.
Go for it. Yes, please.
There is a concept that is called love language. I'm sure you guys have heard of a love language. There is a concept of a love language for kids. I strongly recommend for every parent to know what is the love language of their child. There are tests online. If you just go to Google and type in love language for kids, you will have a plethora of sources where you can read and take tests. Now, a few things to remember: love languages change. They're not constant. So if you think you figured it out, your kid flips on you and you have to figure it out one more time. So be open-minded with that. Do the love language test for them and do a love language test for yourself, because as a parent, you have to take care of yourself too, because if your container is empty, there's no way you can give to the kids. You have to have a full container. So love languages, so there's 5 really. There is a love language by hearing, by receiving gifts, by giving services. Let's say I want to make you a sandwich because I know that your love language is service. One of the love language is a touch, like a hug. And there is one more, praise. some needs to hear. And I have a story with my daughter when she had a long day, and I was keep telling her it's going to be okay, and I was keep building her up with my words, and she stopped me, she looked at me and she said, "Mom, I know you love me, but you're doing it the wrong way." And it was my awakening call, and I was like, okay, let's figure this out. How would you like for me to love you at the moment? How can I support you? And she said, "I just want you to hug me. I didn't want you to talk to me. I didn't want you to do anything else but just be there next to me quietly and stop telling me your stories." So it is important. I am very fortunate to be able to establish this connection and relationship and communication with my daughter when she can tell me that. But for a lot of parents, the kids don't feel comfortable to share what they want or what they need because the parents are not establishing that safe place. So do the test, understand how your child needs to be loved and how your child needs to be supported, so you can be a better parent. And it can be your secret weapon, because if you speak their language, you can get them to do whatever you want them to do. That's like another magic secret, a magic wand, I guess. If you know their language, they will do what you want them to do if you use the correct words or actions or whatever it is that they need.
So Anna, I love that you mentioned the love language. I'm glad that you mentioned the love languages, because that was very revealing for me and my family. We all did the test. And one of the things that I found out was that I'm a service type of person. I love, when people do things for me, because that just means so much to me. And I was doing the same thing to others, thinking that's how they must want to be loved too. And then my husband looks at me, he's like, "Yeah, you always do that. And I don't care about that." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, I'm a affirmations or positive, like words and stuff type of person. And I was so surprised. And then, had a discussion with my kids and them too. So it was very, very helpful. So I'm so glad that you encourage parents and kids to look within, and also to look at their loved ones, because that changed a lot in our relationships. It was very helpful. It was very powerful.
It's magical, right? It's like little things that we can do. A lot of times people think like they have to do this tremendous, gigantic changes or anything else, but a lot of things, it's this little things that makes this huge impact in what we do. So it's the goldfish, it's the love language, it's the story cube, it's the little things that makes this picture of a safe, happy place where kids feel like they're loved, truly loved.
Yeah. And so if parents want to enroll their children in your program, is that only a certain time of the year, or is that any time of the year that they can reach out and enroll their kids?
I do it a few times a year. Lucky for your listeners, the new enrollment just started. We are going to have classes starting end of September, so there is time. I do have a meet and greet class because I'm all about feeling comfortable with the teacher. I'm all about that, being relaxed and being engaged. So I offer an opportunity for my students, parents, to come meet me. It's going to be on September 6th, the meet and greet. I will get you the link, and the classes will start in end of September for the 10 sessions. I do it in increments of 10 sessions because some parents have other obligations or other things that they need to do, and that 10 sessions is designed to get the basics out of communication and start building that confidence, and then they'll have a choice to do for another 10 session or another 10 session. So that's kind of an twice a year we do that for the sessions. So it's coming up. This is a perfect timing. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that sounds really good. And so the meet and greet, is that going to be online only, or do you do anything in person as well?
It is online with quarantine with COVID, I've discovered that if we do it on Zoom, it makes it so much easier for everyone. Parents don't have to drive anywhere. Kids don't have to be stressed. They can be home. They can be having dinner and having a class with me, which is totally fine, of course. So I do have some in-person classes, but it limits everybody geographically. So a lot of my classes are on Zoom to reach more and to give more. So meet and greet is online, the classes are online, the new enrolling classes are online.
And what about time-wise? Because, you offer it to everyone who can access the internet, but they live in different time zones. So how do you arrange that so that everybody doesn't miss class?
That is still something we're working on. For now, there are 2 classes. One is on Tuesdays, which is about evening in Pacific Standard Time. And then one is on Friday, closer to the evening for... We're still working on the timing. For now, there's these 2 classes. However, I am receptive and open in my enrollment form. I do ask parents if they have a different time zone or they prefer different classes, and it will all be based on responses and inquiries. I'm open to opening additional classes earlier to accommodate different time zones. I do have some requests from overseas as well, so there will be some classes that will be in the morning to make it night in other places. So we're still working, and I have some flexibility. It's beginning of the year, so reach out if there is something that you have a proposition. I'm open to any kind of a discussion. And if I have a parent who would say, hey, I want this class and I'm going to bring the friends of my kids, we can do that as well. The more
that's
the better.
Yeah, that's great. So what about parents who want to refer you to their school to you work with, say, a whole classroom? Do you work with organizations? Would you be able to, like, if I tell you, hey, Anna, please come to my kid's high school, and I told the principal about you. Do you work with the schools, or is it always just with the kids?
I would love to. I've started with teaching at a high school for my son, and that's how we started with spreading out. So the goal is really to reach and to help as many kids as possible. And whichever way this will work, I am open to a discussion, to a conversation, and we can figure something out if it's doable for both of us, for both sides.
That is great. Yeah, we need these resources. Kids, they're up against a lot of things like what you were saying earlier, the stress, the competitiveness, and yeah, like we used to come home and throw our bag on the floor and go play outside, and now the kids are up until like midnight just doing work, and it feels like they're already in college, because that's the type of level of intense homework that you get in college, not in middle school or high school. But I mean, things are changing. So any last tips that you'd like to leave us with?
Well, yes, I want to remind parents and the kids and everyone else, and it goes for not just the parent-child relationship or any other relationship. I want to remind us to be that person we wish we had at that situation or at that moment or growing up. As a parent, I want to remind you to be that adult that you wish you had when you were a kid. If you are in a relationship and you're having a challenge, think of it from another perspective. Think of it, how would you want to be supported if it would be you on another side of this? So think of that as, who did you want in front of you at that moment? And maybe, just maybe, that will be your guidance through those tough conversations, through those conversations that you're not sure where to take it. That would be my last word in this podcast for you as a going away thought. Be that person you wish you had.
I think that is really good advice. That's something that I've actually kept in mind as a parent, because we all have those things, right, where we're like, oh, I wish my parents would have done this or that or not done this. And so, yeah, thank you so much. And lastly, where can people find you on social media?
We have projectbu.com, just a simple website. And of course, there is a Facebook. The links to social media is on projectbu.com. On Instagram, I am by projectbu by Anna. And from projectbu.com, all the links will take you places.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And please, if you're listening, check out the information that she puts out on social media. That's how I found you, right? You were speaking with Burju, and I was just so captivated because you were giving this great information on communication. And so of course, I checked out the rest of your page and I saw so much good information on there. So even if you're not convinced that your child should be working with Anna, go check out her Instagram, her Facebook, her website, see what she's doing, the information she's putting out, and see if maybe, hey, your child might be just very open to joining the program. And what I also like is that other kids are in there too, doing the same thing. So I know a lot of children might think like, oh, that's scary, other kids, but sometimes that's a really good thing because you're all on that same journey together and it doesn't feel so weird or awkward.
We can be scared together. I tell my kids that, hey, I'm nervous. I know you are nervous, but together we're going to figure this out. So it's okay to be nervous, and it's okay to not be okay with these things because it's new and it's unusual and it's scary, but we can do it together, one step at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Anna, thank you so much for taking the time to do this podcast with me and share about the amazing work that you do with families and especially with children. I can't wait to hear what happens with the next cohort that you'll have in September. And well, hopefully you'll come back to the show when you have something new going on.
Would love to. Thank you for having me. And I'm here for you. I'm here for your children. Let me know what I can do to help.
Thank you.
Bye.
I really hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Anna. I feel like a communication, for me at least, was such a big challenge when I was younger, in every aspect of my life. And I wish I would have had somebody like Anna teach me from a very young age how to articulate well, not just at home, but at school and in relationships, because I've actually had to buy some books and educate myself on how to better communicate. And, another thing that she gave out, that she mentioned was Toastmasters. That's also a great tool to use in combination with her teaching. So make sure you reach out to her if you're interested in helping your children better communicate. All right, that's it for the show today. If you like this episode, please go and give us a review. That will be so helpful for other parents or listeners to kind of get an idea of what to expect. And as always, I'll be here next week.
Hey, did you like that episode? If you did, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you may be listening and write a review. If you want more tips or some behind-the-scenes videos, make sure to follow my mom at DaliTalks on Instagram. You can turn on notifications for her posts and stories as well. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. See you next time.